in Tasmanian arts, cultural and history. I want to thank you, Your Excellency, for coming and doing us the honours today. Thank you, Jane, for being our marvellous MC. And thank you, Teresa, for that welcome to country and that reminder that there was phenomenal song and melody in the Tasmanian community going back. The French reported them singing in harmony, marvellous harmony, right back for thousands of years. And then onto that scene came Amy Sherwin. But not only that, we ran into Amy Jacker, who was the art curator for Hadley's Hotel, and they took her aboard. Amy came to this hotel, which dates back to 1834, on her triumphant return to Hobart in 1887. And she gave a concert in the first floor room there, which last night proprietor Don Neal redubbed the Amy Sherwin room. And I have a particular affinity for that because it's in the same room that back in 1982, with hearts trembling and great nervousness, we announced the Franklin blockade, which went on to save the Franklin River back in those years. I want to thank Don and Annette and the Neal family. Not only did they take aboard the public showing of Amy, who forever will remain in public hands, but they added the bronze sculpture, gilded bronze, which we're going to see unveiled by Her Excellency in just a moment. But first I want to talk a little about Amy. I saw the bronze tablet about her down on the Del Sade rooms, now a lawyer's office opposite St David's Park 30 years ago. And the more I read about this remarkable human being, the more I fell in love with her. She is such a brilliant person in so many ways. I want to give you, however, the views of people of her time. Back in the second half of the 19th century, and after her triumphant launch at the Theatre Royal in 1878 with the Royal Italian Opera Company, Amy took the title role in Lucia di Lammermoor, reportedly the first Australian ever to sing in another language than English. Here she was in full flourish in Italian, and the Melbourne opera scene went into apoplexy. So began her worldwide acclaim. The Melbourne Argus was ecstatic. It says that during the mad scene, the excitement of the crowd was roused to the highest pitch. Amy Sherwin was a complete triumph. At the conclusion of this arduous scene, that is the mad scene, the young prima donna was summoned before the curtain amidst a storm of applause, in which the cry spread throughout the house, "Bravo Tasmania." There never was a more hearty scene in any theatre. A month later, the Sydney Morning Herald was saying this: "She possesses rare purity of tone and awakens harmony in a manner that holds listeners spellbound with pleasure." The applause was tremendous. Not long after that, the Cincinnati Commercial critic wrote this of the Beethoven Mass: "Miss Sherwin merits special prize for the firm, brilliant notes she gave on high C. They came out with the certainty and evenness of an organ tone, and were like a sudden beam of celestial light bursting out from the splendour of the other sounds in conspicuous beauty." At the prestigious Petersburg Festival on the east of the United States, a critic wrote this: "Amy Sherwin sang, 'Lo, hear the gentle lark.' But the lark itself, as it soars up with the morning sky, never trilled more sweetly and clearly than did that noble voice. Like gems of purest ray serene, those liquid notes were strung together, and when the last one had been uttered, there was a remarkable scene. The audience fairly rose at the singer. Handkerchiefs were waved. People shouted. People shouted themselves hoarse, and gloves were burst in frantic applause. Nothing would satisfy the wild delight of that crowd but a partial repetition of the song, which again called for a similar demonstration. In London's Covent Garden, this report in the London media, her first appearance was a scene never to be forgotten. 3,000 people came to the concert, threw up their hats and handkerchiefs, and gave a tremendous ovation. Annie Wakeman, writing in the London Salon, the arts paper of the time, about an appearance, a private appearance of Amy Sherwin, said this: "The gem of the evening was the faultless singing of a former Boston, as she is now the London favourite, Amy Sherwin. Every word came out as clear and distinct as a bell. Even in her speaking voice, she conveys all the charm that the general singer does when singing. Miss Sherwin is, as you know, very beautiful. Her manners are engaging. Her amiability is boundless. Her information regarding music and other matters extensive. The songs of Miss Sherwin were the crowning glory of the evening." And then the Boston Globe, finally of 1887, backing that up, quote, "Miss Sherwin captured her listeners no less by a marvellous voice, which is bird-like in its clearness and freshness of tone, than by her beautiful, expressive face and her winning, gracious manner, making her personality exceptional, rare and charming." But finally, the Melbourne press of that year, she returned to a great welcome. She now has the musical world at her feet. She is in the full flush of her triumph. Amy Sherwin comes back to us all at the very zenith of her fame. She comes young, beautiful and enthusiastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have today this girl from the bush who never forgot her Tasmanian background, who in fact, long after Australia became a Commonwealth, still insisted on carrying her passport from Tasmania, and who spoke glowingly about the forests, the ferns, the beauty of the Huon Valley, has been now captured by a remarkable modern artist in our midst, which is Peter Sherwin. Peter, thank you for bearing with our committee and the people of Tasmania contributing and around Australia over the last 2 years, because what you have produced, going to Italy, getting Carrara marble, bringing that marvellous block, we've got the picture Cinzia took of a beam of light coming down on it as he selected it in the mountains, transporting it back, converting it into the most remarkable, you'll see it soon, the most remarkable statue, marble statue of this beautiful personality. Not only has he captured her beauty, but he's captured her spirituality, her personality, that beauty and her determination, because Amy said, when you start out to do something, go on and complete it. Unfortunately, her completion at age of 80 in London was in poverty. She was consigned to a pauper's hospital and died and is in a pauper's grave in London. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to fix that too. If we get enough money out of this, we're going to see that her grave gets properly marked with her daughter, who's also in that grave in Blomley. Peter, thank you so much for doing us a job beyond what I could have conceived and what our committee could have conceived of 2 years ago. You put your heart into this and her heart comes out of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, when Amy came back to Hobart in 1887, Tasmania went wild. Well, there were thousands at the Launceston Wharf when the steamer came in. She came by express overnight to Hobart. She arrived at 9 o'clock in July, temperature dropping to 2 degrees. She stepped off the train down where the ABC is now, and you couldn't move for the crowds. She came along Elizabeth Street, church bells were ringing. The band was playing Home Sweet Home. Rockets were being fired. And when she got to the town hall, 4,000 people were crammed around the town hall trying to get in. It took an hour to get her from her carriage onto the stage. And ladies and gentlemen, on that stage, she showed what a beautiful personality she is. But on the stage of this day, she would be proud to know that she can be represented by modern day soprano, Jacqueline Ward. And if only we could do what they did back then, and that is, as she was coming through the streets in her carriage, people took over. They unhitched the horses and carted her carriage to the town hall using their own people power. She never forgot that moment. If only we could reenact it, ladies and gentlemen, with the church bells ringing. Wouldn't that be a wonder? If only we could see Amy on her carriage coming back into the midst of the throng. I think I've heard the clatter of horses' hooves. It stopped. The church bells are ringing. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you from St David's Cathedral. Amy's coming home, ladies and gentlemen.